Hey everyone, welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today we're diving into the incredible story of a true Huntington Beach legend. From opening surf shops to helping grow powerhouse brands like Billabong and Hurley, his journey has left a lasting mark on surf culture. Last year, he earned a well-deserved place in the 2025 Surfers Hall of Fame. Please enjoy this conversation with Dwight Dunn. I would love to give some background for our listeners. So your daughter, Sarah, I've known since she was a kid because she played soccer with my sister. And then she worked with my husband when they were teenagers at Jack. So I've gotten to know Sarah throughout the years. She's always been just so kind and I always love seeing her. But when she posted that you'd been inducted to the Surfers Hall of Fame, I immediately DM'd her and I was like, Sarah, what? This is so cool. And then when I started doing research on you, you have such an incredible history in your career. So I was like, I have to have him on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, to dive back to the 60s is when you grew up in Huntington Beach. So what first drew you into surfing?
So my mom she grew up in Long Beach. And so she goes back before the harbor was there, and she loved the ocean. And so when we were kids, we actually lived in Whittier. And so anytime she could get out of the dirty air of LA and down to the beach in the fresh air, we were down there all summer long and being down, playing in the ocean, watching the guys surfing. We'd stop at like Thrifty Mart and pick up those little styrofoam 3-footers and be out there trying to surf on them and belly board them and stuff. So been in the water since I was about 2.
Oh, wow. I actually have family that lives in Whittier, and same thing. They love coming down for the beach. But at just 16 years old, which is so young, you were already writing for Infinity Surfboards, which my husband informed me is a very big deal. I was not familiar with the brand. So listeners who don't know, it's like an iconic brand. So what was that like being a teenager and getting sponsored for the first time?
Well, it was something I wasn't expecting at first. When I was at that time, we were surfing all the time on the north side with the Greek, who owned the Greek surfboards 2 doors down. And he talked to me about getting a board. And I was walking down to get order the board from the Greek. And Smiley, who worked in the store, runs out and he goes, "We're putting a team together. You want to be on the team?" And that was not what I expected. So it was something it was kind of, what should I say? It validated my surfing because all the young Groms were all getting sponsored at that point in time.
Oh, really? Can you take us back to kind of what the surf scene looked like back then?
So surf scene in Huntington, it was kind of the mecca of surfboards at the time. There was more surf shops in Huntington than probably anywhere on the planet. And so if you walk down Main Street, you saw nothing but blonde-haired surfers hanging out in front. There was a lot of localism back in the day. So you had to get your pecking order. You learned how to surf down at the numbered streets. I learned it between 12th and Golden West. And little by little, I'd come. And as a Grom, you were forced to surf the shore break. Then you could come back into the middle. And then sometimes the local guys would let you come out and join them outside.
I'm literally picturing like that one scene in Lords of Dogtown where there's people that are coming into the surfing area that they're at and they're all upset about it.
Oh yeah, it was bad. People got chased out of town all the time. Luckily, that never happened to me. But yeah, it's just, there was the enforcers in the water. It just made sure that if you didn't belong, they got you out.
Well, not long after you joined Infinity, you ended up working there as well. So how did being around that shop and those people shape your understanding of both surfing and then also the business behind it?
So actually, to kind of give you an idea what it was like back then, my dad lost his job when I was 14, and he wanted to get a job in San Diego. And it took about a year or so to get a job. And when the family moved south, my brother, who was going to Golden West, and I was going to Marina, we had an apartment over on Warner and Golden West. And I graduated midterm, moved to San Diego for a month, couldn't handle living at home, called the shop, and actually moved in the store. It was like the shop Grom, doing dinghy repairs. You clean the store. Somebody wants to take a surf break. You took over and you started selling boards. So at that point in time, you kind of learned what it was like to be around the store and around, the hierarchy of the shop.
When you say moved into the store, do you mean you were living at the store?
I literally lived in the back of the store.
What? Oh, that's like probably so many surfers' dreams. So that sounds so cool.
Well, it wasn't that great, but I woke up every morning and I looked right out of the store and I was looking at the north side of the pier.
Wow. Okay. So where was this like store like now? What's there?
Sessions, the sandwich shop.
Yeah. Oh,
Right
no
there.
way.
Right next to El Don
Oh.
Liquor. Yeah.
Oh my
was,
God. That's
yeah. So it's 17 years old. I was living in the back of the store.
wow.
So
That's so cool. This sounds like a movie.
yeah, it was back then they used to have truant officers and I probably looked 14 or 15 years old. So I was lucky nobody ever came up to me and said, why are you in school? So, but it was a good time, a great learning experience.
Yeah. And then you were featured in magazines and you even had a full page shot in Surfer Magazine in 1976.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was going to say it was actually in Surfing Magazine.
Surfing Magazine. Okay.
Yeah. So, I had a few shots in a couple of magazines before that, but they did a thing on Huntington and there's a whole bunch of our friends. We all got shots in the magazine and it kind of changed everything at that point in time. You'd walk down the pier and people would walk up to you and say they remembered seeing that wave get shot or something. And you're like, yeah, I don't think so. But, I'd let them believe they saw it. So it was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then just 3 years later, you teamed up with Carl Hayward to start Carl Hayward Surfboard. So for listeners who don't know, can you talk a bit about who he was and also what inspired you to make that leap?
So Carl was a really good goofy foot surfer, one of the inventors of the rocket fish back in the day. Everybody knows about the twin fin fish. Carl came up with him and Clyde Beatty came up with the rocket fish. And so Bill Denny, who was his brother-in-law, who owned Sunline next door, he gives me a call and says, "Hey, Carl needs a partner. Why don't you guys, Dino's opening up, you guys can get the store." And I didn't hesitate. I gave Carl a call and, a few bucks in our pockets and we opened a store. So it was.
How old were you at this point?
What's that?
How old were you at this point?
Probably 22.
Wow. So young.
Yeah. But that was like a dream, when I was a kid in high school, it was like that dream. I mean, here I was a little Grom surfing the shore break, and my whole idea was to travel the world and build surfboards and own a surf shop. And I did it that first time, so it was good.
It's wild. And then around that same time, you were glassing surfboards for Hurley, Infinity, Hawk, and HSS. What did you learn there that you carried into the rest of your career?
Well, for a time there, I was actually running the glass shop at the same time. So I got the experience of managing people that you had to build surfboards. Surfboard builders back in the day, probably the same today, not really responsible. Some I had to constantly call, wake them up, remind them to get to work, or remind them the next day, hey, the waves are going to be good, but I need you coming in at some point in time. So, and I mean, we were jamming. Summertime, sometimes we were doing about 100 boards a week. So it's pretty crazy.
How long would it take to make one board?
It all goes in phases. So we'd have a laminator come in. He'd do 10 to 15 a day. I'd hot coat the boards the next day. The next day, the sander would come in. Back then, we glossed and polished boards. Glosser would come in that night, and Thursday, that board was done. So Monday through, And if, say, Carl or Bob shaped boards on Monday and said, I need them by Friday, they were done.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so we could crank them out. So
yeah, 100 a week is insane.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Bob, you started working closely with Bob Hurley in the early 80s, who went on to launch Billabong, which I actually didn't realize. So what was that early partnership like, and what do you think made it click?
So, Bob and I, we worked together in the glass shop. And so we had a relationship, really as a working relationship at that point in time. Once he started Billabong, he didn't have time for a surfboard business. So he gives me a call and said, "Hey, could you help me with the board business?" And I jumped in, ran his board business for about a year, which was a challenge. I mean, he took all the money out of the company, moved it to Billabong, and within a year we paid the bills off, and then it was, you know, jumping into the clothing and running production with Joe K.
So cool. Who's that?
Joe Knirschall. That was one of Bob's partners.
Oh, wow. And so you went on to spend 17 years at Billabong before Bob branched off and created Hurley, where you spent another 18 years running production and overseeing t-shirt development. So how did you see the surf industry evolve over those decades?
So I kind of, I thought about this a lot in the past, and people used to ask me when I was still with Billabong, they couldn't believe the size of the company was, and I'd always say the industry got bigger than it ever should have been. Back when I was a kid, you had Hang 10 in the 60s. And what would happen back then is surf brands would start in the surf shops. They'd go to the mall to die. And so brands would kind of last about 10, 15 years, maybe in the surf shops. You would know the brand, but it was really living in the malls. Hurley, well, I'd say Billabong, Quicksilver, they were the early anomalies. They had transpired from a brand to the malls and kept going really well in the surf shops. So, the market grew so big. I mean, it was probably back when I was a kid, probably $50 million. And at one point in time, what was it, $4 billion or something? Pretty crazy.
Yeah. I grew up in the same time Sarah did. So I was surrounded by these brands when I was a kid, especially living in Huntington. But yeah, I remember Billabong, Hurley, Quicksilver. That's what everyone was wearing, and Roxy when that came around. So even into middle school, high school.
Yeah. When you were a kid, Orange County was known as it was something Velcro, because all the surf brands were here. Yeah, you had, like you said, you had Billabong, Quicksilver, Gotcha. Let's see, Volcom, Vans. Everybody was based out of Orange County.
Yeah, and they were like the cool brands. Like, that's so funny. I really miss that era of it all.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, Hurley became such a defining brand of surf style and innovation, as we mentioned. But what were some of the behind the scenes stories from that time that you can share?
So a lot of people didn't realize that we had sold to Nike in 2002. And during that time, we had access to their library, their fabric library. And Bruce Moore, who worked in design, he took advantage of it. If you remember back then, O'Neill had the Super Freak, which was at that time the most dominant stretch board short. And Bruce discovered the Phantom material, and Nike wasn't using it. It was a fabric they designed for the Italian swim team. And he converted it into board short fabric and reinvented it over time. So, yeah, that's really where the innovation started coming and clicking in fabrics and everything, in t-shirts and jackets and fleece really came about because of that relationship with Nike.
I had no idea. I love that story. And this is kind of niche, but do you remember the Hurley Walk the Walk that they would partner with Huntington High School for?
Yes, I do. That thing was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Were you part of that?
I was not part of it. I did watch a lot of it going on. Again, that was something we had with the financial backing of Nike, that we were able to do things that other people couldn't do. And we were encouraged to do that. So we had Walk the Walk. We had internships that we threw, like internships where kids didn't actually, most of the time you're kind of a grunt. They have you doing filing and everything in that nature. They didn't. They were given projects to work on. They were push to try and invent new products for the brand. Some actually did make it to the market.
I actually remember presentations or something that was done at Huntington. Now that you're mentioning the projects, because the Hurley Walk the Walk, they took some of the clothes or something, and then they created a fashion show at the beach. And I feel like Jesse McCartney performed at one of the shows.
I think so too. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times the kids were like DIY, they're cutting up good product and making new stuff that, stuff that they really wanted to wear, not so much the stuff that we were designing. So it actually was a pretty fun time for everybody.
Yeah. God, I also miss that era. I wish that would come back. That was so cool. Okay. So what initially got you interested in graphic design and production?
So I was kind of thrown into it. Like I said, when I left the factory and went working for Billabong, the first thing I did is they threw me into production. So part of my job was to go downtown LA, walk the sewing lines, go to dye houses, go to fabric printers, and also to screen printers 3 days a week. So I was downtown in the mix of it. Had no clue what I was doing, but we had to learn it as we go. So that's how I learned production. After time, I became really good on the t-shirt side of the business.
Were you in your early 20s still at this point as well?
No. By the time I was with Bob, I remember turning 30 when we were at Billabong. But in the Hurley days, I was in the 40s, 40, 50, something like that.
I'm curious, when you first started being thrown into that position and not having had experience before, did you deal with imposter syndrome at all, or not really?
Not really.
Wow, really? So they gave you like a lot of why not?
Well, I mean, basically what they did is they gave me a good idea of what I was looking for. And I walked in and, part of the experience of running the surfboard factory is you had to learn how to work with people. And so when I'd walk the line, I literally walked the line and watched people sew. And then I would be checking their work to see if I had any broken stitches or slip stitches, or we'd be measuring product, see if they're cutting way too much off with the knives. So you're learning as you're going. When I was in the screen printers, I asked a lot of questions. So I didn't act like I was authority of what I was doing. I was asking them, even when I knew the answer, I'd ask them in a question and they validated if I was right or wrong.
Interesting. Oh, that's a good tip. Yeah, I feel like because I did not have any journalism experience prior to getting into this job. I had a journalism minor, but that's not like, it was different. But I did struggle with imposter syndrome, but I got through that by asking so many questions and not being afraid or embarrassed to ask certain questions. So I feel like that's a really good a tip, advice.
Yeah, I found when I was in the factories and stuff, I'd actually tell them what I wanted, but in a question, and I'd get them to do what I wanted. So it was pretty easy. I could actually move around production a certain way by doing that. Said, hey, if we move this here, do you think it'd be ready tomorrow? And then they'd look at the schedule and figure out how to give me what I needed.
Nice.
So ask the question instead of telling them to do the job.
Yeah. Well, so how did you come to work with Contravisual and IPD? And for listeners who may not be familiar with those brands, can you talk a bit about what they are? Okay.
So Contravisual is actually, it's a group of brands. You may know them as Affliction. I can't think. I'm trying to think of some of the names and I'm totally blanking.
No, but I know Affliction. That's an Orange County-based brand.
Yeah. So they're actually owned by a major screen printer called Massive Screen Prints. Local guy, Courtney Dubar, he owns the company. And what we do, or at least what I do, is I work with a retailer in the Midwest. I handle 2 of the private label lines. And basically, how I actually started working with them, Nike had a big layoff back in 2017. And as I was told, I was being retired. Yeah, it was pretty funny. It was just sitting there and going, Actually, I'm not retiring, but so I went to work with my friend, and I was helping him with some of his brands and some of the work. Did that for a year, and kind of went to part time. And then 2019, Bill Hurley, Bob's brother, and a few ex Hurley employees, they put together IPD. And so I invested in the company and been working with them ever since.
Wow. I actually, I have a friend who did a couple pop-up events in their parking lot. It was
Okay.
called Less is More. So I've been in that area, and they had a band playing in that like garage that they have there. So
Yeah, I
I,
knew what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah. So I've seen the building and I've been around it. And then that's how I learned who they were. But that's awesome. So how long have you been working with them?
Well, 2019, 20 is when we launched. So right in the
Oh,
middle of
wow.
COVID. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a newer company. Well, what excites you most about this next generation of surf brands and creators?
Um, so if anybody, a lot of people realize what's been happening within our industry.
Mhm.
All the heritage brands have now been bought by companies. We call them, they own the IP, which is the intellectual property. Now, they no longer make product. They license it out to other companies. At some point in time, I think what's going to happen is the newer brands are going to get bigger opportunities in the retail space because the big guys will finally start to move on and you get more floor space. I like the newness that the new brands are doing. They step out of the box. The older heritage brands have a tendency, and I remember I was part of that. You kind of fall into a trap. You do the same thing over and over.
Mm.
But the newer brands, I think they're fresher. The kids are liking it better. I'm 71 years old. I don't think an 18-year-old kid needs me to tell them what they need to wear. They need to be telling me what I need to be making for them.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I
Yeah.
totally understand that.
I mean, that's
Well,
kind of the way I help people. I tell them, they ask me advice, and I tell them, you know, I'm here to help you. You tell me how I can help you. You tell me what you need, not the other way around.
right. That's so interesting. What are some of the products that you're loving right now that are coming out from IPD?
Right now, we don't have any newness right at the moment. We're in the middle of launching a brand new line.
Ooh.
I can't really talk that much about it because I haven't been that much involved.
Mm.
So yeah, I've with them. I just kind of I'm jack all trades. Whatever you need me to do.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this in the introduction and we talked about this in the beginning a little bit, but you were inducted into the Surfers Hall of Fame last year. So congratulations.
Thank
This
you.
comes out 2026. But when you think about all of the chapters of your journey, what does that honor represent to you personally?
Well, my wife calls it my what would she call it? Basically, my award for lifetime achievement award.
Yeah.
It's I've being honored for everything I've done within the surf industry, and feel pretty honored that I mean, only one guy a year gets to go in as a local hero,
Oh,
and I mean, three people go in, but one is a local hero. So I was really proud to be one of them. This year,
yeah.
and it's nothing something I wasn't expecting, and super glad it happened.
Yeah. What was that like on that day? So how does the ceremony work?
So basically, they have the three of us sit down. They introduce all of us, and
Mm.
one by one, they come in. They talk to us. They have us sit, and then put our hands, then our feet, and then we write something in the concrete. And I went really fast. It was pretty surreal.
Where is your square? Like,
I'm pretty much right in front of Duke, that statue.
oh, what?
Yes. So
Oh, good. That's such a good spot.
yeah.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh. I'll have to go see it.
it's like there could be one more, but I'm right there. It's pretty wild to be right in front of Duke.
Yeah. Oh, what an awesome feeling. Well, is there anything that you would like to shout out for listeners to keep an eye out for in your career or with the brands that you're working with? This will come out in February.
Yeah. I don't have anything new.
Mm.
Like I said, I'm 71 years old, so I'm actually backing away from stuff. I'm here really helping brands. I'm helping Florence right now.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, doing some stuff with them. So I'm not really involved in new developments. I'm more behind the scenes doing things for them. And the same
that's
thing with
exciting.
IPD. So I
Yeah.
don't really know anything that's new that I should be seeing coming up.
Well, it's very exciting that you're doing all that. So I'm excited to keep my eye out and see what happens. But we are coming to the end of our time. But before I let you go, we have 3 final questions for you that we call the Thoughtful 3. So first, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to start up their own brand?
One is if I mean, you're now becoming an entrepreneur. You have to realize you're going to wear multiple hats. Be prepared to work. And one of the things I could kind of explain to people look at people like Bob Hurley or Bob McKnight from Quicksilver, and they see them today. They don't realize who they were back in the day. And Bob, when he first started Billabong, he would call me and say, "Hey, Dwight, could you get me a check?" I mean, they didn't have money. Everything you did, you put back into the company. So expect to be poor, and hopefully you can turn it around and things become well, and you have a very good career and you make a good amount of money doing it.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you offer to people who want to align their career path with their passions?
Oh, well, for me, surfing was always my passion. And I almost want to say I fell into everything. I was really lucky. Infinity offered me a job, and that was the starting point to get to where I was. Luckily, I got that full page spread in the magazine. Everybody knew who I was. Jumped into the glass shop, and when Bob needed somebody, he saw the work I did. We had a relationship. We had a partnership within the glass shop, and I just took advantage of everything I could, and it ended. I never thought of it as work. It was just, actually, I don't even think I work today. I still have stuff to do, but it's not a job.
That's exactly. I completely feel that with this too. And then lastly, what have you learned in terms of how to navigate challenges?
I kind of pointed that out when I had challenges working with people. I pointed out that what I would do is to get what I wanted, I actually asked people in a question. I would tell them what I wanted, but I made it a question. And that was kind of the way as I worked my way around it. Any sort of challenges I had, you just got to figure out a way to navigate on your own personality and make it work your way.
Yeah. I also feel like I would respond well to that type of boss as well. Like someone like not commanding you to do it, but doing it in a kinder way, like phrasing it like a question. I can see how that would be easier to work with someone like that.
Yeah, I learned a lot from like working with Bob and with Bill Hurley is when you're upset, you don't have to be upset. You can kind of point your direction in a different way. And then at the end, you become the one who made the mistake. You're the one who felt that you did something wrong, but they didn't scream at you. They made you actually feel good about the fact that you made a mistake and you learned a lesson and you're going to move forward from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a great like role model or mentor to get.
I mean, if you're screaming at somebody, what does that do? But if you kind of make them understand they made a mistake, but you're both happy about it, you learn something and you try not to do it again.
Right. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so much fun getting to talk with you. I am just so blown away by everything that you've accomplished, and I cannot wait to see what you continue to do throughout your career.
All right. Thank you.